Hey everybody, happy Friday. Hope you're having a great day and getting ready for a great weekend. And it's time for Optimism 101. And in the topic that we have been covering this month about pride and social support, I wanted to bring something up specific to the Hispanic culture. And not only Hispanic cultures, but in cultures in general. So when it comes to the different types of cultures, generally speaking, in a sense of personality, usually cultures are considered to be collectivistic or individualistic. And in a collectivistic society, usually the harmony of the group is more important, and so that people's behavior is actually mediated, or not mediated, but it's not controlled. I would say that people's norms and behaviors are centered on the relationships that they have with others and how to maintain a harmony with others. Whereas individualistic cultures, such as the US or Northern Europe, those cultures tend to be more centered on the individual and allow the individual more freedom to do the things that they want to do. So we find that people in these cultures, although you might think, well, maybe collectivistic people or people from collectivistic culture, because they actually have all that importance in the harmony and the relationships, they might have more social support compared to people who are individualistic and they just are like all for themselves. It doesn't pan out that way. When we talk about collectivistic cultures, it's about social harmony. So sometimes social harmony comes before your own needs being met. So whether, you're having some kind of trouble, you need some kind of help, you might not seek help or ask for help because you don't want to bother your son, you don't want to bother your daughter, you don't want to bother your parent or your cousin or whoever. And in that sense, the same thing happens in both cultures, where social support is something that is not necessarily easy to come by, and you wonder, like, how do we actually do this? How do we actually cultivate good social support? How do we create a sense of community and network where we know we feel safe and we feel validated by those that are around us? And I think that one of the key things into creating that kind of sense of social support is that we are able to feel comfortable with who we are, and we are able to allow ourselves to be seen by others. And that's the first step. Because obviously, if you are not sure of who you are, if you're not sure of what you stand for, how are you going to be with someone else, whether it's an intimate relationship or if it's just a friendship? Because you're going to be basically going on by whims or wherever other people kind of push you around. But when we realize our own potential, when we realize our own self-worth, when we realize the goodness that is within us all, and we actively, because it takes effort to take that out in a world where being nice is considered, kind of like a weakness, and being shady and being mean is kind of like the norm. Everybody is like that. Like, I went to the supermarket and I always go on Sundays to get my groceries and my meals for the week, and they say, "Oh my God, you're so nice. People are not nice." And I'm like, well, this is just how I am. But in any way, so when we're able to see ourselves for who we are, for our true self, for that nature that is untouched by hurt, by aggressions of others, and when we allow ourselves to be that light and be that person amongst others, those people who will feel attracted to the light and to our sense of self-worth will come to us. But you have to be careful, because just as there will be people who will try to lift you up, there will also be people who will try to throw stones at you constantly. And that's where you need to weed out who gets to be in your inner circle or not. And it's not about, blocking people, because I actually took the time to unblock 2 people from my phone today. But it is about finding the time and the space where we are safe. And the people who hurt us, when we are not able to defend ourselves, taking the distance from them. But when we're ready, we can face the world and just be strong and still have that close sense of ties and friendships from those who always saw us for who we were and always see us for who we are, no matter how hurt, no matter how fallen we are or how broken we might be at times. And that's kind of like what I feel is key in developing this sense of social support and having people's back in those times when we all need sometimes to be held or to be helped to rise up again. And so that's kind of my message for today, not just because we're Hispanic, we tend to be all about support and everything. I think it's very common that in any culture, especially with the topic of being LGBTQ, part of the LGBTQ community, people often find that their families usually and end up giving their backs to them just because of their sexual orientation. And so again, we go back to those conditional relations where there has to be certain conditions met in order for them to work. And oftentimes when we have the courage, when we find our own self-worth and when we see ourselves for who we are, we realize that those relationships are meant to just fall off, because we're not here to just please others. We're here to be the best version of ourselves. And with that for the right people is always going to be enough. No matter if we are depressed at some point or if we're having some kind of issue at some point, we often give the best of ourselves and what we know until we know better. So with that, I guess that's a really nice ending to today. And I just wanted to say thank you for all of those of you who are watching the YouTube videos and the IG series. And I'll continue with this topic on social support and the LGBTQ community next week. And I actually have an idea that I'm gonna run by some friends tomorrow to see if we do a little activity that kind of brings the community together. I'll keep you posted and tell you more in the next few hours, 28 or 48 hours, depending on how it goes with everybody else.